welcome to Howling After Dark. So, just to let you know, I'm currently in my kitchen cooking my dinner. I'm not a sponsor or sponsoree of these people that I'm about to mention, but I am going to mention it because they are awesome. I have been taking, as I like to call them, my stress relief. I have been taking these rides on these electric scooters, and if you're in the Akron area at all, I highly recommend using them. They're from a company called Spin. They're awesome. They got a great range, and they have these electronic geofences set up, so like you can't go past them or the scooter will shut off, I guess. But even so, the area they have set up is gigantic, and they're really fun. You could take them on like park trails and stuff. It's where I actually just came from. So, yeah, I highly recommend Spin. And I noticed that these electric scooters are, they're like electric kick scooters. Kind of like the kind you see, little kids riding around on, except they have electric motors. And they're a lot of fun. They go about 15 miles an hour, top speed. They will bog down a little bit on going uphill, but what do you expect from a 350 watt motor? Anyhow, tonight's show is going to be kind of interesting. What happens a lot of the time with me is I'll hear these stories that maybe I heard about a long time ago, or if I heard about them at all, and then I'll hear another story, and then I'll be able to draw like some kind of connection between the two, and it'll spark an idea for a show, and thus we are having our show tonight. So let's get to it. So, for those that maybe aren't familiar, I'm going to pull up the history of the Dyatlov Pass incident. The little bit I know is this, that in 1954 there was a group of experienced truckers, I guess you could say. I believe they were mostly cross-country skiers. And, but, they were kind of used to these mountains. Like some of them were new, but there were like a few of them that I think like there was one lady who had a shit ton of experience in these mountains, and there was, I think, a total of like 7 of them. Hold on, let me pull up the thing real quick, because that's more detail than what I'm being right at the moment. Alright, so, there was 9 of them. Okay. It was, the Dyatlov Pass incident was an event in which 9 Russian hikers died in the northern Ural Mountains between the 1st and 2nd of February 1959 in uncertain circumstances. The experienced trekking group from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, led by Igor Dyatlov, had established a camp on the eastern slopes of Kolatsiaki. I think I'm saying that right. During the night, something caused them to cut their way out of their own tent and flee the campsite while inadequately dressed for the heavy snowfall and sub-zero temperatures. After the group's bodies were discovered, an investigation by Soviet authorities determined that 6 had died from hypothermia, while the other 3 had been killed by physical trauma. 1 victim had major skull damage, 2 had severe chest trauma, and another had a small crack in the skull. 4 of the bodies were found lying in running water in a creek, and 3 of these had soft tissue damage of the head and face. 2 of the bodies were missing their eyes, 1 was missing its tongue, and 1 was missing its eyebrows. The investigation concluded that a compelling natural force had caused the deaths. Numerous theories have been put forward to account for the unexplained deaths, including animal attacks, hypothermia, avalanche, katabatic winds, infrasound-induced panic, military involvement, or some combination of these. Russia opened a new investigation into the incident in 2019, and its conclusions were presented in July 2020 that an avalanche had led to the deaths. How does an avalanche make claw marks in their tents? Because that's what they found the next day. There's detailed accounts of that they found what looked to be claw marks in their fucking tents. And that on the other side, they had cut their way out of the back end of the tent to get away from whatever it was. And then the bodies, the way they were found, looked like they were physically attacked. Pre-mortem. That's a direct quote from fucking Coroner back in 1959. And are you serious? An avalanche? No. Sorry, Wikipedia, you're wrong. Alright, now I'm going to pull up the second part of tonight's discussion. It's actually 3 parts, technically, but these are the 2 that I guess I'm using to illustrate my personal theory, which we're going to get into. And of course they give me the wiki for the fucking movie. I don't... God damn it. Okay. Alright, so I'm just going to tell you what I know about the Oxbow incident. Yes, it is also the name of a book and movie and all of that, but has nothing to do with the incident I'm talking about. There's a place called Oxbow Pass. It's in Montana, in the Rockies, and in 1886, there was an incident where fur traders who had been through that area like a gazillion times had basically the same thing happen to them, where they were mysteriously found dead. They showed signs of like physical attack, and etc., etc., etc. Now, here's my question about this. Going back to the Dyatlov incident, why did they not mention the possibility that they were attacked by something like a Yeti? I know. Governments don't like to admit that anything remotely paranormal is real, but how many times are we going to see that it is before they finally let go of the fucking illusion that it would affect us negatively in some way and cause, mass panic? We're relatively intelligent people. I say relatively because I know there's some stupid dummies out there, and I don't give a shit about them. That's not who my audience is, or should be. I like my audience to have a brain. So, I think that anybody with a, you can be skeptical all you want, but anybody with a relatively intelligent, brain is going to see stuff like this and go, oh, well, let's put two and two together. Because it makes 4, not 5, and not 3. And not weather balloon. And not swamp gas, or whatever fucking bullshit excuse they're trying to come up with this time. These mysterious attacks and disappearances have been happening forever. Forever. It could be argued that that's what happened at Roanoke. It could be argued that's what happened to the Anasazi. And for those that don't know, both of those disappeared overnight without a trace. You understand what I'm saying? Like Roanoke, everybody knows that the word Krakatoa was carved into a nearby tree, and yada yada yada, and that there was a tribe called the Krakatoa, which is probably what happened. They probably left that site because it was in hostile Indian territory and went and lived with the Krakatoa. That's probably what happened. But, however, the Anasazi also disappeared overnight. And when we're talking about the Anasazi, you need to understand, this is not a small tribe of people. This is a tribe of people that at the time numbered in the millions. They were roughly the size of modern-day Navajo Nation collectively. Collectively, the Navajo Nation is 2 million people. So you're talking about roughly 2 million people disappearing overnight. No tracks left behind. Personal belongings left behind. Things that they would not leave without were left behind. Like water skins and shit. And you're telling me that was caused by what? Because it definitely ain't an avalanche in, Arizona, New Mexican desert. You know, and I'm sure if I looked hard enough, I would find connections to other incidents all over the world. In fact, I know of another one. I don't know what they call it. But there was another incident in the same mountains, the Ural Mountains in Siberia, Russia, where the same frickin' thing happened like 20 years later in the 70s. Same exact thing. Bodies found almost exactly the same way. Campsite was found exactly the same way. Things that they would not venture out of camp without, if it was their choice, like winter clothing were left behind. And you're going to tell me that's just coincidence? Really? It's just me? Does anybody else out there think that that's totally unreasonable to think that it's just coincidence, that it was some fluke accident thing? Because I don't know about you all, but I'm not buying it. I mean, there's a lot of craziness in the world. There's a lot of stupidity in the world. But, I mean, that's like saying that you know, the stuff that happened in Roswell in 1947 was, you know, a weather balloon. Which is, I mean, it's bullshit. We know it's bullshit. And we know it's bullshit because the initial investigation of that, by the way, turned up metal from the crash site that is unexplainable. It's of an alloy that we have never seen before. And you're going to tell me it's a weather balloon? Really? Yeah, and the Phoenix Lights were just swamp gas, right? Yeah, I'm not buying it. I don't think any relatively intelligent person in the entire world would actually buy that bullshit excuse. And if they're not going to buy that bullshit excuse, then they need to at least be open to the possibility that there's something else going on there. And if there's something else going on there, then they need to be open to the idea that the actual event was caused by something paranormal. Or maybe cryptozoological. You know, it wouldn't be the first time that there's been reports of Yeti or Bigfoot or whoever, you know, attacking somebody. So, you know, it's typical gaslighting, is what it is. You know, well, we don't want the American public to, you know, panic. And this has been their excuse for, like, nearly, like what is it? 80, 90 years now, I guess it is. And every time they want to, justify that response, they point out the Orson Welles War of the Worlds incident that happened in the, I guess it was like 1930s. They were doing Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, like War of the Worlds. We've all seen the movie, probably the classic as well as the Tom Cruise one. Aliens coming down, taking over the Earth, blah, blah, blah. Well, in the 1930s, I guess people weren't exactly prepared for it, and in the way it was portrayed was like they were listening to an actual news broadcast, and a couple of wingnuts from, places like Arkansas went out and, did some crazy shit. And so now the government points that out, like, oh, well, we can't do mass panic, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what's going to make people a lot less panicked is if you tell them the truth, dickhead. Because I honestly don't think any reasonable person in the world is buying your bullshit anymore. I really don't. Yeah, I know there's closed-minded people out there that are like, yeah, I buy that excuse. Of course they do. These are the same kind of fucktards that probably voted for Trump, too. Who cares? They're not my audience. I don't give a shit. These are the same kind of people that knew 9/11 was coming and did nothing about it. Who cares what they think? Because they don't matter in the long run. They don't. Sorry. That sounds harsh. Whatever. Don't care. Anyhow, it's not really what the show's about tonight. Although I will and have done shows about that. The whole cover-up thing. Sorry about that. I was pouring myself some cold brew. My daughter sent me a cold brew coffee maker. And I haven't had a chance to use it until tonight, so there you go. But you can draw connections with a lot of things, no matter what kind of subject you're talking about. Even stuff that's not necessarily paranormal. But, what was it, Malaysia Flight 347, I think it was, like the whole plane, I mean, we believed that it crashed. It wasn't like a paranormal thing, necessarily. but the whole thing kind of disappeared. It just vanished. I mean, you could draw connections between that and the disappearance of fuck, I'm drawing a blank. Famous female pilot that disappeared in 30s, 40s, whenever. God damn it. Why can't I think of her name? I'm just drawing a blank. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, though. Like, she was famous. But, and now I don't know if you heard, they think they may have found her. Oh, that's going to bug me. Amelia Earhart. That's who I was trying to think of. Amelia Earhart. Like you could draw connections between her disappearance and the disappearance of Malaysia Flight 347, because they were both. I mean, back in Amelia Earhart's day, they didn't really have radar per se, but they both, vanished without a trace. Malaysia 347 actually vanished off of radar. And there was no plane wreckage ever found. But it's the same kind of thing. You can draw those connections between lots of different stuff. And the funny thing is in a lot of those cases, you might actually be right. Like there's direct connections between Roswell and White Sands, for example. There's connections between, what is it, Silver, I forget what it's called, something Silver Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch. A lot of the same things happen. You've got a lot going on. And, I mean, let's say that just for argument's sake, right? Like, some of it can be explained away, like in quote unquote rational terms. Like, things like swamp gas or weather balloons. Let's say that those things actually were those. That doesn't explain all the other shit that's happened. It doesn't explain the whole Travis Waller, fire in the sky incident, which a lot of people are, coming down on it saying, well, it didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. They were lying. No, they weren't. They weren't. Because here's the thing, a lot of people like to start talking about the Waller thing. a lot of people like to throw on that they failed polygraph tests, Travis Waller and as well as his friends. At different times had failed polygraph tests, but at different times also they also passed polygraph tests. So it's not conclusive either way, just going by that. But having said that, just the fact that his detailed account of what went down is an exact match in a lot of cases to other detailed accounts. And I'm sure everybody at one point or another as a kid probably played the game Grapevine. Right? And if you haven't, let me familiarize you with it. So, a lot of us played it when we were kids, where you whisper something into one person's ear, and then it goes around your group of friends, like, let's say 12 kids or so. And when it gets to the end, what you said is totally changed into something completely different. Right? Well, that effect is called the grapevine effect. Right? But there's also the opposite of that. And they actually use it in court all the fucking time with what they call circumstantial cases. Where if one person with no connection to person A is telling the same story, and then person C is also telling the same story, and they don't have any connection to each other, then it must be true. Why is it we can approach criminal court cases where somebody's getting put away for the rest of their fucking life for murder like that, but we can't apply that to paranormal events like UFO sightings or sightings of Bigfoot or even ghost sightings? How come we don't apply the same methodology to that, but it's okay to ruin somebody's life based on circumstantial evidence? How does that make any fucking sense? You know what I'm saying? Like if more than one person with no connection to an event is describing the same fucking event, then guess what? Even by law standards, it happened. That's what that means. It means it happened. I mean, sure, we could come up with all the fucking explanations we want to make us feel better about the world we live in, but at the end of the day, you're missing out when you do that. You miss out because, and this is the other thing that drives me batshit insane. Like, I've watched pretty much all the paranormal shows at this point, and what drives me crazy about all of them is they always assume that something is negative in most cases, and that drives me nuts because, like, for example, and it's not just on the TV shows either, it's also on YouTube videos I've seen before, like top 10 creepiest, ghost videos that were caught on TV camera, or whatever. And I'm interested in a lot of that, but it drives me nuts when the person that is playing host to said video footage is like, well, it's a shadow figure, it must be a dark evil entity, blah, blah, blah. No, because I've experienced things, and I've told you before, I can see them. And I see them. I see them when they transition from form to form a lot of the time, too. And the only difference, as far as I can tell, between a full-bodied, fully detailed, interactive apparition and a shadow person is the amount of energy it takes to do it. Otherwise, there is no fucking difference. Now, that's not to say that, there aren't dark, evil entities out there. Of course there are. But that doesn't mean that every shadow figure you see is automatically evil. We need to stop with that kind of thing, is my point. And we need to do that with everything across the board. We can't explain the Dyatlov Pass incident as, it was an avalanche. Last time I checked, avalanches don't have fucking claws, people. Not to mention the fact that it didn't appear that there was an avalanche when they found the campsite. Because they found the campsite. If it was a freaking avalanche, it would have been buried. They didn't have to dig them out that much. They had to dig a little, sure, to uncover everything because, it's Siberia, it snows. But, it's just the official, cause of death is just absolute bullshit. Especially when you take into account that originally, the original coroner for the case, it basically meant unknown, but it was written off as like mysterious. I forget exactly how it was worded, but it was something to the effect of like mysterious physical trauma of unknown origin. Basically alluding to the fact that I can't explain this shit. When did that become such a bad thing? If you can't explain it, don't try to. Don't force feed us some fucking bullshit fucking government made fucking answer. Gas balloon or swamp gas weather balloon bullshit. Because we're smarter than that, number one, obviously. And B, we can handle the truth. I don't know how many times you got to prove that over and 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 over again, but we can handle it. Stop making bullshit reasons. Just tell us the truth. And I think if they were ever to do that, I think if they were to turn around and say, oh yeah, they were killed by a Yeti, I don't think anybody on the face of the planet would be surprised. Of course, the closed-minded sect out there would be like, oh, no, that's not true. Or come up with some other bullshit reason. But we know. And they all claim that, oh, well, we're scientists, we don't believe in that stuff. Well, if you were a real scientist, you would. Because it's explained by science. Whether you believe that spirits are a natural thing, or you believe that it's just, like a window into another dimension, whatever, it can be explained by science. But ignoring it is not scientific method. Ignoring data to fit into your preconceived box is not scientific. Anyways, that is all the time I got tonight, folks. Thanks for listening, my pack, my tribe. Until next time, peace out.